That seems to be working.
Yeah, that's working fine. But has it lost him? Yes, it's tracked me now.
This one?
Yeah, just don't turn the thing. Just I'll be there in a minute. Just give me 1 minute.
Okay, so
Okay, so that's recording. Is that on?
Yeah.
Huh?
It's not tracking. It's not tracking. How do we do it?
Pass me back. Do you want to? Okay, just let me get you there. Do you want to just move a bit? Yeah, okay.
what's that? I can't find the live one. It's just showing the bottom. It's okay to admit, yeah? Right, admit,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. I'll just let it record on Zoom. That's the camera. And if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. Please don't track me. Okay.
Put your collar up there.
No?
Put your shirt collar up.
Okay. Hello everybody, my name is Manoj Chawla and I'd like to welcome you to our online event. Today we have an international speaker, growth strategist and radio show host. He has worked in 4 industries over the last 40 years and scaled one company 100 times. Sharing his insights on the power of synergy, please welcome the business expert, Alec Drew.
Thank you very much, Manoj. My goodness, folks, if you could see it just here, it's like the NASA Space Center. Anyway, we're all up and running. If you haven't been at the coalface over the last number of months, there's a fair chance that you're taking time out, like so many other business leaders, just to reflect on your own organisation. You've probably asked yourself some serious questions, like, how well prepared are we for these uncertain times that we're in and going to face? We're also asking questions about, have we got the resources needed to build resilience? And have we got the right talent now, or are we going to have to go out and recruit it? The power of synergy can answer those and many more questions. But before I get into it, I just want to talk about what synergy is. Synergy is when the effect of 2 things coming together, the output is greater than the individuals. But how does that work in terms of your organisation? Well, very simply, if you have a number of departments in your organisation and they're all working in perfect harmony, their interaction will give you a much greater result. Over the last 40 years, I have seen the power of synergy across so many organisations. I've seen how it helps build innovation and productivity, recruit and retain the right talent, and foster and build resilience. But much more worryingly, I've seen obstacles being put in its way, impeding it. Obstacles that are generally man-made, put in there unconsciously. And so today, really what I want to talk about is the sort of obstacles get in the way of synergy, the hidden, unseen costs to your organisation, and how you might overcome them. Let me take you back. I'm going to go back to my early 20s. Yes, it's not a history lesson, but not far off. But there's something of value here, I think, that we shall take forward. It was a Thursday, just like it is this evening, but it was in June. It was about 6:30 in the evening, and there I am, eating this sandwich. Yes, I'm working in a busy city centre branch of a bank, and I'm doing overtime. I'm going to be there till, probably 10:30, 11 tonight, as I have been for the last number of nights. Now don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm an issue around doing overtime. I mean, the money's always good. But it had been so intense for the first 6 months of the year. And I suppose like all young people, I was thinking of what a beautiful evening when you look out there. And I was thinking of my friends, and there they were sitting back enjoying it and just washing it all down with a cold pint of beer. Yes, I was sitting there. But why were we back doing overtime? Overtime in this day and age, you hardly ever hear it. But overtime in those days, yes, we got paid time and a half for it. Well, what was happening was that international markets were in a state of flux, and what was happening that interest rates were changing on just every month, every 2 months. What that meant was that a team of 6 of us had to spend up to 2 weeks applying those interest rates to more than 30,000 deposit accounts manually. Yes, you heard me say that, manually, and it had to be done accurately, because mistakes made meant that we had to stay back at our own cost. Yes, of course it was before computerization. Probably before most of you were born. But wow, hey, the work was good. But getting back to that fateful Thursday evening, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, there must be an easier way to do this. And then, we've all had them. That sort of eureka moment, aha. And I remembered basic mathematics from school. A certain law that in terms of these calculations, and I went, let me just try that out. And I used it, yes, and I used it again, and I used it again, and it was just working perfectly. And what I was doing was actually shaving 4 seconds off each transaction. Armed with this new information, I couldn't wait. I went up to my manager of the day and I went, hey Tim, sort of voila, look at this. I've got a great new piece of information that's going to cut back on the time taken to do all this work. Was he impressed? Heck no. He looked at me, he looked at the equation, and he looked back at me, and he said, Alec, you're too young to be coming up with such stuff. There are greater minds in our head office who have put together the formulas for working out all of these. So can I suggest, just get back to work. Was I impressed? Oh God, no. I was totally deflated. I had a new idea. Back then we called them ideas. Now it's called innovation. So anyway, I went back to work. But what I hadn't realized, and it took a number of years later, was that I'd run into 3 of the obstacles of innovation. The first one was perception, the second one was presumption, and the third one was pretensions. Let me just flesh those out a bit for you. Perception. This is about doing things in the traditional way. And really, you have to ask yourself in business today, you must be more agile. You must look at the processes that you have within your organization and then challenge them. You should map them out. You need to collaborate with your internal and external audiences so that you understand the dynamics of the marketplace and what's happening within your own organization. You must continually research and evolve according to what's happening there. Because if you don't, what typically happens in an organisation is complacency sets in. What happens with complacency? You lose competitiveness. You lose sales. And ultimately, shareholder value destructs. Presumption. Yeah, the presumption that somebody young could actually contribute something to an organisation just because they're in the place a short time. Now, we know the flaws in all of that because we see the dynamics of youth today. But you need to harness that. I mean, that's old-fashioned thinking, yet it's alive and well in so many, many organisations. So how do you overcome this? What you really need to do here is you need to encourage people and put in place the channels of communication in your organisation from top down and bottom up. You need to help train people to actually share their ideas in collaboration with their colleagues in a safe environment. If necessary, bring in outside trainers to instill confidence, to help people articulate their ideas so that they can then be shared. Also, very, very importantly, don't forget, you need to let them know the challenges the organisation has. I saw a beautiful example of that recently. I won't mention the name of the company. But what they had beautifully designed out on an A3 sheet were the 3 top challenges of that organisation. And where did I find them? In frames above every urinal and behind the toilet door of every cubicle. Fantastic. And the third one was protectionism. Let me talk about protectionism for a minute, because it comes about in so many different guises. In the case of my suggestion at the time, going back to the story, I didn't realise it. While my suggestion was great for the organisation, those who had a vested interest in getting the money for the overtime certainly weren't going to have somebody like me shortcutting or shortchanging them in doing that. So there was automatic resistance. But you see, protectionism comes about in so many different guises. Let me give you an example. I was speaking with the managing partner of a medium-sized law firm, and she was telling me, my greatest challenge, she said, Alec, is we have over 100 partners, and you think that they will introduce their own individual clients to other partners within our firm? I said, what? She said, yes, seriously, they won't. They hold them as if they're precious. And this is to the detriment of everybody in the firm. Another example, you'll see in large organisations where there's interdepartmental fighting, people looking to have their way brought forward. Again, breaking up the power of synergy. And where you see it at its worst is certainly when senior positions like CEO or CFO come about. You'll suddenly find that you have 2 factions supporting the candidates going for that job. And when somebody's placed, the candidates who are supported by the losing side find themselves ostracized, cast out, and yet their contribution to the firm could be massive. So what's the point in me taking you back all of that time? Well, very simply, when I reflected upon it, I see so many of the challenges that I've identified just there to you now happening today in organisations. The second thing was I did a mathematical examination of what this organisation was losing as a result of not adopting the suggestion that I had. And on average, it was 25,000 man-hours of productivity per year. And the third part of this was that organisation is now trading at a share price of 1/20th of what it used to be. Anyway, that's the past. Let's get back to the future. Let's bring things back to a sort of reality situation now. I was speaking with the branch manager of a bank only, probably less than a year ago. And I was saying to him, Pat, what are your greatest challenges in terms of what's happening with your organisation at the moment. And he said, Alec, mortgage holders who are in distress, tell me more, Pat, tell me more what's going on. He said, we're already overburdened. We have been instructed and we have a challenge in relation to dealing with people who are really suffering, putting in place robust solutions so that they can actually get through the difficult times that they're facing. I said, tell me how that's happening. He said, what we do is this. We send out a letter in a pack, and enclosed in that pack is a 12-page A4 document, hard copy, that they have to fill in by hand. What are you thinking? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? There must be a better way to do that. I mean, in this day and age, how about filling this form online? I know you mightn't have all of the information at hand just there and then, and you may have to upload other documents. But you could do it in stages. It's not rocket science. So many organisations do it already. So what's the next stage of the process? The next stage of the process is very simple. What you then have to do is phone in and get an appointment with one of the branch managers. Tell me more about that. Well, typically the phone lines are always busy. Or you may be taken through some convoluted layer after layer to get through. Typical waiting time, 20 to 40 minutes. What are you thinking? There must be a better way of doing that. How about booking online? How about scheduling that meeting online? And then what happens then? He said, well, then what happens is you have to come along to the branch and sit down with me and go through all of that information. Now, that doesn't take long. However, what I have to do then is manually upload the information that you've given me to our online system. And that takes an hour and a half. Tell me, does the customer actually have to stay around for that? Yes, they do. Because it's only then when it's uploaded to our system that we print it out. And you have to sign it. And now we have all the information sorted out. And I went, wow. I said, tell me, how often are you doing this? He says, me, personally, I'm doing it twice a day. I said, 3 hours a day, and how many days a week are you doing that? And he went, every day. And I went, my goodness me. I said, that's absolutely unbelievable. So anyway, what I'd like you to do is this. I'd like you to join with me in a piece of mathematics. Why don't you get out your phone, get out your calculator, we're going to do a piece of math, and it's a 3-part sum. I'll keep it simple for you. And if you have people around you, you can pretend you're doing it, and you can be texting how great this all is, and talking about Manoj and his team. Anyway, let's start with the 3-part piece. We have a person who's spending 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Put that into your calculator. 5 by 3 is 15. There's 96 branches in this particular organisation. Multiplied by 96, you should be getting 1,440. And multiply that. Sorry, I'm being distracted here. So 1,400, and multiply that by the number of weeks in the year, and you've got 52, and you've 74,880. But of course, not every branch, not every manager is doing this all of the time. So what we're going to do is divide that number by 5. And we'll just round it up. And if you do that, you'll have 15,000 there. That's 15,000 hours. And what I want you to do is just hold that figure there. Because I'm going to take you through the second part of the sum that we're going to do. And by the way, this is a question I'm asked time and time again, believe it or not, by leaders of all sorts of organisations. How do you calculate the cost of an employee? I'm about to reveal that to you now. So if nothing else, you come out with that, you don't know. Let's just take the example. 2020 is a leap year, so we have 366 days. Take off the Saturdays and Sundays, which is 104. Take off the bank holidays, which are 9. Take off the annual holidays of 20 days that you get. Take off the average of 6 days that you get, and you come back to 227. That's 227 days times 7. Comes out as 1,580. You can do the maths on it, trust me. So that's 1,580 hours in a year that you'll be working for this organisation. Now the third part of the equation is very simple. What is this person being paid? Typically, for a bank manager, as we're talking about in the story, he's paid anywhere between 44 and 111,000 a year. Let's pick somewhere in between. Let's call it 70,000. Let's add in universal social charge. Let's add in PRSI. Let's add in a small contribution to the bank, and we can round that up very quickly to 80,000. So what have we got now? We have three numbers. How does that all work? Well, very simply, what we have is we've got 1,580 rounded up to 1,600, and we've 80,000, divide one into the other, and very quickly you work out that the rate per hour that this person is costing your organisation is €50. There it is, €50, very simple calculation. Now if we go back to the other figure, what have we got? We had 15,000 in the number of hours that were spent in the organisation multiplied by 50. What does that give you? Yes, €750,000 in the productivity loss in this organisation each year. And you know the worst part of this is? They don't know it. They don't know it. So how do you deal with a situation like this? How do you deal with productivity losses that are going unnoticed? Let me give you a suggestion. The way you collect information coming in a central office, because typically this is a branch system with a head office, of course these managers have reported being overworked, having to do these sort of difficult meetings, hour and a half. I mean, look at it from the clients and customer side of it. They've had to spend up to 2 hours between booking in the call and then going along and attending the branch. The manager's already overworked, and if we flip it over and look at it from his side, he's now got more administration work than he needs, which all could have been handled online. He's reported it in, as so many other managers have, but their way of collating this information is so poor that nobody's actually putting a cost on it. If they were putting a cost on it, very quickly the bells would go off and some action would be taken. But there's a disconnect between the reports maybe going into the HR department and the IT department, who have their own agenda and are working on as typical IT people do. So how do you get over this? Well, one of the things I've discovered, and strangely enough, when you meet so many people in business who have worked in this situation or worked in an organisation that is branch-based with a head office, is when you work in the branch and you work in the head office, as I did, you discover very quickly you might as well be working for two different organisations. That's true. They are like chalk and cheese to one another. And really what you have is no understanding of what the other does. This is to have people in head office go out into the trenches for just 1 month a year, or 1 month every 2 years, and experience what their colleagues in the field are feeling. Get people from the branches to go in and work in the various departments, because they can share their knowledge of how those departments are feeding in to what they have to do. So you can see, very simply, how we can save €750,000 without having to do a huge amount. It's all about communications. These are the obstacles that I'm showing you in relation to productivity. I was just switching topics altogether. Let's talk about retaining talent. I was asked by the managing partner of a professional services firm to come in and have a chat with him. I'd known him for many years. We sat down in his office and we had a chat. And I said, okay, how can I help you, Jim? He said, Alec, we're losing people. But I'm too busy to deal with all this. And I said, how do you mean losing? Yeah, they stay here maybe a year, 2 years, and then they move on. And listen, I think he said that it's down to a shifting workforce. You know, we've full employment out there, and these are just young people, but I'm too busy to look at it. And my management team keep coming to me and complaining about it. So listen, I said I'd get somebody else to just check it out and see, you know, just to confirm really what I thought. Okay, fair enough. I talked to the management team, who were overly busy as well, because this was a busy firm. And it was quite interesting. What they said was, wow, we're losing people. The stress and strain it's putting on us to try and find replacements, and then to train them in, up to the standards that we need is huge. We're in a niche sector. And so what we're hearing back is our reputation is being damaged. And it's killing us. Okay. I said, okay, I'll do an investigation. I put on my Sherlock Holmes deerstalker hat and went off into the field, and I said, let me talk to some of the employees. What a great bunch of people they were. Not joking, what a great bunch of people, loyal people, hardworking people. I said, what's wrong? What's happening? They said, we're overworked. I said, it seems to be a common theme in this organisation. Yes, we're overworked. But because of that, we're being thrown into projects where we don't have the skill set, the full skill set to deliver them. We're making mistakes. We're feeling inept. We're feeling under pressure and under stress. We've asked management for training around this, but they're always too busy to do it. We don't even mind doing it on our own time. This is why people are passing through the organisation. I went back to management and I said, that's quite interesting. I got the names of a couple of people who had left the company, and again they were open and telling me, and they just confirmed what I'd heard. But what I discovered was a couple of things, which I thought was actually quite interesting. Number one is, there was no exit interview for any person who left that organisation. Nobody asked why they were leaving. Now you would expect, at the very least, somebody would ask why people are leaving. But they didn't. Worse still, the company accountant never brought to the attention of management the actual cost to the organisation of this throughput of people. And when talking to them around the finances, what we found was this company had flatlined. It was making a profit, it was making a small profit. But when we did the maths on the cost to the organisation in terms of the people, it was in excess of 200,000 a year. And that had been going on for a number of years. So, if you have a situation, all the signals are there. You've got people leaving. The very first thing you should be doing is asking them why. When they're asking for help, sit down with them, understand the training that they need. Make sure you put that in place. You need channels of communication between management and all of the people so you can collaborate. Make sure self-leadership is part of what you put out there so that they know how to take on responsibility and to deal with certain challenges. Give them the freedom that they need. But just don't let it happen there around you. I'm going to move to the final phase of this. I said I'd talk about resilience. And this is quite an interesting one. So this takes us right up to date. I've heard so much talked about resilience. It's just one of those buzzwords that's been going around the last couple of years, and I thought to myself, yeah, what is resilience? You know, where do we see it? And, well, coronavirus certainly introduced it to us, full on. And it was quite an interesting experience as we've gone through this over the last number of months. And I want to take Ireland as a good example of what's happened in terms of resilience. And really what happened in Ireland was we had an obstacle that prevented those in power intercepting the coronavirus at the early stages and possibly saving us a fair amount of grief. We then had all the obstacles removed, which allowed them to put in place clear plans for everybody to follow. But now that it's waning off and it changed, we're now seeing the obstacles being put back up again. So let me just give you the background of this story. Typically in Ireland, we like to time things nicely. We had a general election on the 8th of February. And what had happened was the outgoing minority government, Fine Gael, slightly right of centre, had got a right drubbing in the elections. Rightly so. Their policies on health, housing, homelessness had failed to impress the public. And so what they were told in no uncertain terms, after losing many seats, goodbye. They had resigned themselves to going into opposition. That then left the other centre-right party, plus all the left parties, to kind of squabble among themselves. And there's such a diversity of politics in this country. We could have a talk about that forever, but I won't bore you to death with that. Let's just get back to the central issue. what happened then was we had lockdown before a government was formed. What did this mean? It meant that the people who were being kicked out remained in place. Even those who had lost their seats remained in place. But a striking thing happened. Suddenly, the obstacles to doing things in a sensible way were removed. Let me give you an example of this. The health system is probably one of the most dysfunctional systems we have in this country. It's been going on for decades. Nobody's been able to deal with it. It really is a poison chalice to any minister that gets in there. This health system was going to have to change with coronavirus and the intending victims that were going to be brought in en masse. So what happened? Government very quickly had all of these wards cleared. They had set up temporary hospitals. They'd commandeered private hospitals. And in a stroke of a pen, in a couple of weeks, they'd made all of the beds necessary for these potential people coming in available. Wow, are you kidding me? They were able to do that. We had 10,000 homeless people who were out there. With a stroke of a pen, and within 2 weeks, they were all in accommodation. Now remember, these are two of the pillars that took down this government. Now I'm not saying there won't be long-term consequences to all of this, and it's nice when you just open the checkbook and do it. But really there's a mindset, if you want to get around to doing things, it can be done. So just find a way to do it. But you see, what had happened is the obstacles, and the typical obstacles that you get there, had been taken away. Obstacles like in-party fighting, sniping from other parties, people challenging this, challenging that. Suddenly you're trying to justify yourself nearly on every move that you make. On a typical example of that, bureaucracy just taken out of the whole equation. How do you mean? Well, for example, procurement. What a nightmare in this country procurement is. If you want to buy a box of paper clips, you nearly get into a 6-month tendering process. What happened here is they bought €200 million worth of PPE, signed off with a pen in a matter of days. And it all sort of worked. Now I'm sure we'll have all sorts of repercussions afterwards. But what happened was they were given the freedom to do things. And one of the key parts of that was to have a proper communications with the population. The Taoiseach, and if you're not from this country, that's Prime Minister to you from outside of here, stood up and laid out a plan for the whole nation that was simple and easy to follow. The Health Minister, similarly. And what we had was a simple 5-stage process that managed the expectations of the population, that took us through this in the best way that they could. And overall, the population were happy. And the man whose party were being kicked out and going into opposition, his popularity just soared. But what do you think happened then? As coronavirus started subsiding, the smell of power came into the nostrils of these people again. And before we know it, we now have a coalition, and guess who's a part of it? You're dead right. And already there's dithering going on. And the obstacles around social distancing, we're having a row about that. The obstacles about travel, which is now a bit ambiguous. And we're back to where we started. Wouldn't you think that the lessons that had been learnt could have been embraced by everybody? But no, we're back to the old party politics. I'll finish with this one final thing. I've been fortunate enough to be in contact with so many networks of SMEs over all the years. And I know large organisations often sort of poo-poo SMEs, you know, they're small people. But really what you forget if you're running an organisation is you're running an organisation of SMEs. So you have a HR department, you have an accounts department, you have a marketing department, health, safety, all of those things. They're little SMEs that are all together. And that's all you're operating. However, what you can see within the SME community, when this hit, suddenly, and I think there's a touch of Irishness about this as well, this was more about the glass half full than the glass half empty. Sure enough, suddenly businesses are being wiped out, but my goodness, the way people have been able to transform their business, how they've made connections, how they've pivoted their business. There's so many examples out there. And so really what I'm saying to you is this. There's huge hope out there. But the real thing is this, as I get attacked by a moth, is this. What you need to do is embrace the power of synergy. Because once you embrace the power of synergy, your organisation will overcome all of the major obstacles that you now face. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alec.
Thank
I
you.
want your
Yep.
hands.
There we go.
I've been attacked by moths and everything.
Oh
See
my
that?
God. Well, we hope you all enjoyed that talk. Thank you very much. This has been a baptism of fire for all of us.
Yeah.
And getting all this technology working, we have more cameras here than probably they have at NASA.
That's what I was
For
thinking.
the space launch. You can see yourself. We're being tracked.
Yeah, I
by-
know. I've been tracked by cameras all over the place, and I see all these technicians around, which I wasn't quite expecting. I was thinking, have I got a revolver? Because I might take one or two of them out. But it was great. No, I thoroughly
good.
enjoyed it.
I'd really like to thank Pat and Barry also for helping out.
Yeah, Pat, thank you
So-
very much. What fantastic offices you have here in Dawson Street. We're overlooking the Mansion House. What a great view to have. And I believe these are co-working spaces as well for people who want to get involved. Fantastic.
Right.
And Manoj, thanks very much. The tech king here. My goodness, I've never seen such a setup like this. I bet you wouldn't get this in one of the shops for less than 50 quid.
Just a little bit more.
I thought so.
Okay, let me just end the session, so just bear with me a moment. So.